Welcome, everyone. I'm Shagwhelin and this is Shaggy Stoner Drive. It's been a few months since I've had my last podcast because of COVID and everything, and I do apologize, but I will be getting back at it, and I'm so excited for the podcast today. I have Josh and his wife, Maya, and we're just going to be talking about his story as the first double lung transplant with cannabis to be approved. And so anybody that has listened to my podcast before knows my story is that I lost my mom to breast cancer when I was 9, and I knew she used cannabis during it. Unfortunately, it was back in 2000, so you had the shitty Virginia weed, not like what we had today.
Sticks and seeds.
I always tell people I'm not sure if it would have cured her cancer, but it definitely would have at least given her some more time and enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
So this is Trainwreck, a nice little sativa. Right. But Josh, welcome so much. Thank you for being a part of my show and coming on my podcast.
Thank you for allowing me to. I'm happy to be here.
So I'll just let you tell a little bit about your story and everything, and then I'll just intervene with a few questions where I see fit.
All right. Sounds good. Well, so I would say it all started for me in 2012. I coached 3 different sports. I coached basketball, baseball, and soccer, because my daughter played all 3. So I was coaching a game in the rain, and the other coach wouldn't concede. It was the last game of the year. He just wanted to be done. So that's when I really found out about being what I had going on. We wouldn't know for another year what it actually was. But anyway, that night I went to the hospital for respiratory failure. It was the scariest thing that's ever happened to me, Not being able to breathe is scary, So when I finally made it out of the hospital, which no one thought I would, I went home and I was having a hard time basically doing anything. I lost my job because I couldn't really even get up at the time. It was just horrible,
You can't really even explain what's going on to him.
Yeah. Luckily, his dad had an oxygen machine. His dad always had respiratory problems. Yeah. So he gave him an oxygen machine, and that's kind of what kept him going for the year so we can get him diagnosed. So.
Yeah, it really was, yeah. So I didn't have medical insurance, so that year, we waited at least a year to find out that I had medical insurance, and we finally got to a specialist, a lung specialist, and he pretty much knew right away when he met me. He said, there's no way you could be this sick, even if you smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day from the time you were a baby, he said you wouldn't be this sick. And he pretty much knew what I had. So he gave me the test, and we waited about a month and a half or so, and but he told me in the beginning, he's like, I know you have alpha-1, antitrypsin deficiency.
It's a genetic respiratory disease.
Genetic respiratory illness, and it generally affects the lungs and the liver.
So is that partially what your dad had as well, or?
He had Agent Orange from Vietnam, and
severe COPD. He never did get the test, but he had to have gotten a gene from him. He got one from each parent because he's a full-blown alpha.
Gotcha. Yeah. My body makes no trypsin.
Because some people can just be carriers. Mm-hmm. And so either both his parents were carriers, passed it on, or his dad was full-blown, but we don't know.
See, my dad didn't believe in alpha-1. He didn't, he's like, oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's super rare, less than 100,000 people in the world have it, So it's still classified as really rare with Norge, Yeah, so we met that doctor, great doctor, Dr. Mouthard, and he gave me the options, He pretty much said,
your only option.
You can live like this and not be here long, or you can start to think about a transplant. And when he mentioned that, I was just like, a transplant, it was like the scariest thing he ever could have said to me.
Yeah.
But I had very little use of my lungs at that point. I was 18% or something from the beginning, right?
20-something.
Yeah, it went down as low as like 16%
So,
use of my lungs.
were they thinking that was going to be a double lung right off the gate? Or did
Yeah,
they think it was
there's
gonna
like
be
your lungs are shot.
Yeah, they knew right away. Yeah. See, if I would have known from a younger age that I had alpha 1, there's treatments. Like right now, I go to the cancer center once a week for 2.5 hours or so every Thursday, and I get augmentation therapy, which is IV plasma. So, I mean, if I would have known that when I was younger, I didn't even know I had it till I had respiratory failure. So, I mean, if I would have known so these lungs probably won't go bad because I'm getting the therapy every week, no matter what I go.
And it's crazy that you mentioned plasma because in college I used to donate plasma.
Oh, wow.
But it was more just.
I wonder about the people who do that.
And they would give you it'd be like a bonus. It'd be like $20 your first
No way,
one in the
that's
week,
awesome.
$50 your second time that week or so, and they do little
Interesting.
bonuses. So like in college, that's what we were doing. Just actually pay for our weed. We'd donate. So like each of us donate. That's 3 of us. $20 as an eighth or $60 for an eighth back then.
Yeah,
so.
I know. I remember.
But I
that.
didn't know how much it was actually helping. So hearing
That's
that
from
it's
just,
actually really
because of people like you.
Yeah.
It's people like him who
I
get
mean,
it. Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't for FSO, I don't think I would have lived as long, It helped, the cannabis helped me be mellow. It helped me make it to transplant,
Because by that point, it was hard to smoke, so. But he's always been a cannabis user, so to not use it, so
Right.
he had to
It
learn
was hard.
different ways to do it.
Nothing worked right,
Yeah.
So anyway, that doctor referred me to Stanford.
And we're in Maui when he's diagnosed. That's where we lived. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they don't do any transplants in Hawaii except livers.
And
So
kidneys, maybe. Yeah.
So they said, go to Stanford, we'll get you worked up for a lung transplant. So we went through all these crazy tests on Maui, and then me and her were just going to go, originally because they're paying for both of us. And at the last minute,
We were homeless at that point. Was the thing. Like he would become so sick, we lost our
We
house.
lost everything.
I mean, we're living on the beach.
yeah,
And they want to fly us there, so at the last minute, like his Social Security, I worked hard to get him that disability,
the
and
whole way through this one saved me.
it kicked in at the last minute. So we bought our kids tickets, and we're like brought him with.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest thing is as a family,
Right.
and that's why I wanted to have you here is showing that it's not just the patient, it's also the
The
family.
whole family's
Yeah.
affected by it. Our whole world's turned upside down.
It's crazy how our health system is that like you have to be so broke at your point of almost dying
Right.
just to get help. It's like,
Yeah.
They won't let me go back to work, man, and I
Yeah,
can
now that
work.
he can breathe,
But
it's like
if
they
I'm
still
not
don't let him
broke,
work.
I can't.
Exactly.
I can't have the medical insurance.
It's
It's
all
dual
because of
coverage.
paperwork.
Yeah, it
That's
stinks,
keeping you
man.
alive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but so I do other great things, with my time. Like we have a support group we run in Monterey Park. We do a lot of things for other people. We bring meds to
Sick
vets
people,
and
cancer patients.
right now we're doing this. A friend of mine, Cannabis My Medicine on Instagram, is doing a 100 milligram CBD giveaway. So I've been handing out CBD lately.
That's amazing.
I like to hand out FSO. I take care of a lot of cancer patients. I have a couple that are terminal right now. So
So has there, what I've really realized is people that go through something like this, they tend to actually become more giving and realize that what's more important. I got into the cannabis industry to help people out and to tell people patient stories, and that's what I hope to do with this, and show that it's our friends, families. It's not just those true stories, but also my brother and sister. They both went into nursing, and so things like that. And you're just talking about. You said you had a daughter and a son, and that
Right.
they want to help either animals or people
Or children, yeah.
and then you're going around handing out CBD. So I think when you're in a situation like this, it allows you to be more giving and realize what's really important.
yeah, I think
Totally
it
check.
really changes your focus of what's real and what's important. When you go through a life altering thing, and I mean, it's changed all our lives. And I mean, I don't know how my kids are so well adjusted. I mean, that was a lot to worry about for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're good kids. So anyway,
And so we made it to Stanford for a
to get back on my
consultation.
story. So I made it to Stanford for a consultation, and Yeah, everything was going great.
They're like, you're a good candidate.
Yeah, they're like, you're a perfect candidate, down the road. And the last thing he said to me, he's like, all right, we're going to put you on the list. The last thing they said is, and then they say, and then the blood comes back and you see their faces change and they're like, oh,
Cannabis.
you have cannabis in your system.
And we didn't have permanent residence either. We were homeless.
We were
So they're
still
like,
homeless
well,
at that point.
go back to Maui for 6 months, refrain from cannabis.
Right.
Don't use cannabis. Get a permanent residency, then come back and see us. And we're like,
But I couldn't do that.
we had nothing to go home to. So
We had nothing to go home to, and I just knew if I went home, I wouldn't make it. You know what I mean?
And to refrain from cannabis, that was probably
That
the
was
one
like,
thing that
that's-
was
That was the one
helping
thing-
you.
Exactly,
That
you
was
know?
keeping you alive because you're not getting the treatment.
Right,
Yeah.
that's my medicine,
Yeah.
That's the medicine I choose, is cannabis, And I mean,
because when you're sick, it's not like your sleep is off, your eating's
Yeah.
off, your stress,
Right.
So cannabis helps with all
of that.
those things.
yeah, without
you know?
cream of the crops FSO, I wouldn't have slept,
Yeah.
I mean, it was horrible.
But we didn't find that till later,
Right.
Was that after the transplant you found?
While waiting for
Or-
transplant.
No, while waiting.
I think the October before transplant, you found Scott
Yeah, a friend of mine had messaged
through Cream of
the
the
owner
Crop.
of Cream of the Crop, Scott, and said, I got this friend who's really sick and he's up for a transplant and all this stuff. So Scott agreed to meet me. And so I remember the day, I had a full day at UCSD, and I mean, I was just beat down. I'll never forget it. I was almost on the floor of the car. I mean, he rolled up on his skateboard and just looks at me like he knew it was a bad situation, But, he wanted to help, so he started sponsoring me with FSO. I kind of jumped ahead on that, but since we mentioned Scott,
Yeah. So
So he kind of, after they turned us down at Stanford, he was kind of like, it was kind of like a letdown. I almost wanted to give up.
I almost
Maybe
gave
we
up.
won't try for transplant.
Yeah.
But we established down in Palm Desert, he had a buddy that he knew since Maui. So, but
Yeah.
so then
Almost gave up.
I got him in at UCSD, and they thought we were a candidate too, but he was so scared about the cannabis use, so he did refrain for a few months, and they put him on the
No,
list.
it was a month and a half.
Or like a month.
Yeah.
He refrained because he wanted to get on the list, but it was driving him crazy. They had him on Valium. He didn't want to take Valium.
Yeah. I had
And
to sleep.
yeah.
then he was worried that they were going to find it in his system because he was using it here and there. So he just finally one day was open with one of the transplant doctors. And he's like, hey, this helps me more when I ingest cannabis instead of taking Valiums, And he's like, cool.
He's like, okay.
He's like, we'd rather you ingesting, as long as you're ingesting it, not smoking it,
Yeah.
we'd rather you do that than be on Valiums
Man,
and stuff.
I stressed so hard over that. Oh,
And
so
that's
hard.
even killing your body more.
Right.
Without the not sleeping, with the
Right.
stress, because you're not
Yeah.
sleeping more, you're not eating because of the
Right.
stress, and it's just all adding up.
Oh, it does. That's the thing. You nailed it right there. I mean, if you don't sleep, nothing's right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not in the right frame of mind, nothing's right.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have slept the RSO, the FSO. I mean, that's why I slept.
But we found out about FSO and started looking for it when he was waiting for transplant. His brother
Yeah.
became terminally ill with cancer.
Yeah,
It was like
so-
out of the blue, and he died within a few months. But he worked so hard to try to find some of this to send to his brother. By the time we found somebody compassionate enough to donate it, and I think it was the day your brother passed, right?
Yeah, by the time when I got the RSO to my house, it was the day my brother died. I didn't have any money because we had just, we were coming from being homeless. We had used everything to set up, and I didn't have any money, so everyone wanted money for it, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's why I give it out free to people who need it, because you know what? I mean, cancer took my brother within like a month and a half.
Oh, yeah.
And like you say, maybe it might not cure it, but for damn sure it's going to make him feel better,
Exactly.
and maybe live a little longer because he can
Some
be more
relief.
relaxed. And,
Yeah.
And, experience
Yeah.
with your mother, I'm sure.
And you just have different stories